On a Saturday in June, a bride sat alone in her wedding dress at Mirror Lake Park. Her veil was crumpled beside her wheelchair, her mascara had run, and the only thing she'd received from the man who promised her forever was a text message that read, "I need someone complete, not a liability." Across the park, a widower was laying out paper plates for a picnic with his 7-year-old twin daughters on the anniversary of his wife's death. He heard her crying before he saw her. He almost didn't walk over, but if he hadn't, none of what happened next would have ever begun. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories reach. At 4:17 p.m. on a Saturday in June, Elena Vance sat alone in her wedding dress near the edge of Mirror Lake Park, her veil crumpled beside her wheelchair, her phone trembling in her hand. The text message glowed on her screen. "I need someone complete, not a liability." Her breath came in sharp, broken pulls, as if her ribs were splintering from the inside. Guests had waited at the chapel downtown for almost an hour before whispers turned into apologies, then pity, then silence. She had left before anyone could offer a ride. Now she was here, because she had nowhere else to go. Her dress, once ivory, was streaked with dirt where her wheels had caught the grass. Her mascara burned her eyes. She bent forward, fists pressed into her lap, and the sound that came out of her did not sound human. It was too raw, too stripped. Across the park, near a wooden picnic table under a wide oak tree, a man stood still. A widower adjusting paper plates while his 2 daughters argued about juice boxes paused mid-motion and lifted his head toward the sound. David Calloway had heard grief before. He recognized it. He set the plates down carefully. "Stay here," he told the twins. Haley crossed her arms. "Are you going somewhere?" "There's someone crying." Chloe squinted toward the lake. "Is she hurt?" "I don't know." He forced a small smile. "Guard the cookies." They watched him walk across the grass. Elena didn't hear him approach until his shadow stretched across her dress. He stopped a few feet away, giving her space. A man holding his hands loosely at his sides said gently, "Hey, are you okay?" She laughed. It was jagged. "Do I look okay?" He glanced at the dress, the veil, the wheelchair, the phone in her shaking grip. "No," he admitted. Silence settled between them, heavy but not hostile. "I'm sorry. I couldn't ignore it." She wiped her face roughly. "You should. Everyone else has." He crouched down so they were eye level. "My name's David." She stared at him as if names were meaningless now. "Elena," she whispered finally. He nodded once. "Elena." Her jaw tightened. He didn't come. David didn't ask who. He sent a text. Her voice cracked again. Said he needs someone complete, not a liability. The word hung between them. David sat down on the grass without asking permission. "That's cruel." "It's true." She hit her thigh with the heel of her hand. "I wasn't like this before. 8 months ago, I was walking. I was running. I had a job I loved. I had—" She stopped, swallowed. "I had someone who said forever." David looked at the lake. "My wife loved this park," he said quietly. Elena blinked at him. "I'm sorry. She died 2 years ago. Car accident on a Tuesday, 8:42 at night." His tone was calm, but his hands were tight together. "We come here every year on this day, the girls and I." Elena studied his face. He didn't look broken, just worn. "I didn't think I could breathe after. Everyone kept saying time helps. I wanted to punch them." A weak sound escaped her, not quite a laugh. "I still talk to her sometimes, mostly when I'm scared I'm messing up with the kids." "You're not," she said, automatically. He smiled faintly. "You don't know that." "I can tell." Before he could answer, 2 small figures were running toward them. A girl with 2 messy braids skidded to a stop. "Daddy, is she okay?" A second girl stood beside her, clutching a stuffed rabbit. "Why is the princess crying?" Elena stiffened.
David looked over his shoulder. "You were supposed to guard the cookies." "They're fine," Haley said dismissively. Chloe stepped closer to Elena. "Did someone hurt you?" Elena swallowed hard. "Not physically." Haley frowned. "That's worse." David exhaled slowly. "Girls." But Chloe was already tugging at Elena's veil. "You look like you're getting married." "I was," Elena said. "Where's the prince?" Haley demanded. Elena hesitated, then said plainly, "He didn't want to marry me anymore." The twins exchanged a look that only 7-year-olds could manage, equal parts outrage and logic. "That's dumb," Haley declared. "Very dumb," Chloe agreed. Haley turned to Elena. "You can have some of our picnic." Chloe nodded eagerly. "We have strawberry cookies." David started to protest, then stopped. Elena stared at them. "I'm kind of a mess." "That's okay," Chloe said seriously. "We have napkins." Something in Elena's chest cracked open. David stood and extended a hand. "It's just over there, no pressure." She looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she placed hers in it. He helped steady her chair as they crossed the grass. The afternoon unfolded in pieces. Chloe insisted Elena feed the ducks first. Haley told her about 2nd grade and how boys were mostly gross. David handed her lemonade without making a big deal about the way her hands trembled. At 6:02 p.m., Elena laughed. It surprised all of them, even her. By the time the sun dipped lower, her sobs had faded into something quieter. When it was time to leave, Chloe hugged her without asking. "Are you coming next Saturday?" she asked. Elena glanced at David. He didn't look away. "I don't know," she admitted. "You should," Haley said firmly. "We always come." David walked beside her to the parking lot. "You don't have to be alone tonight," he said gently, "if you need somewhere to sit or talk." She shook her head. "I've been alone before." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, me too." She hesitated. "Thank you for not walking away." "I know what that feels like," he replied. As he loaded his daughters into the car, he looked back once. Elena was still there, facing the lake, but she wasn't crying anymore. The next Saturday at 3:58 p.m., she came back, and that's how it began. The next Saturday at 3:58 p.m., Elena stopped at the edge of Mirror Lake Park and almost turned back. She wasn't wearing the wedding dress anymore, but she still felt it on her, the humiliation, the word liability echoing in her head. She rolled forward anyway. Near the oak tree, David was wrestling with a kite string while his twin daughters argued. Haley saw Elena first. "The princess is back," she shouted. David looked up, surprised, then relieved. "You came?" "I owe the ducks a rematch," Elena said lightly. Chloe hugged her. "We saved you a cookie." "Daddy burned the hot dogs," Haley announced. "They're grilled," David argued. Elena laughed before she could stop herself. They spread out a blanket. No one mentioned the wedding. They talked about swim lessons, school, squirrels. Slowly, Elena joined in. "I used to work at a graphic design firm," she said at one point. "Used to?" David asked gently. "Before the accident, black ice in December. I don't remember the crash, just the hospital ceiling." The twins grew quiet. "Are you going to walk again?" Chloe asked. "The doctors aren't sure." "Doctors don't know everything," Haley said firmly. David met Elena's eyes. There was no pity there, just understanding. Later, when the girls ran to feed ducks, he stayed beside her. "You didn't have to come back," he said. "I know," she hesitated. "I don't really have anywhere I'm expected." "You are now, by 2 very bossy 7-year-olds. She smiled. "What he did," he added carefully, "wasn't about you. It felt like it, I'm sure. But some people panic when life changes. You didn't." "I wanted to," he admitted. That honesty settled between them. Later, when the girls ran to feed ducks, he stayed beside her. "You didn't have to come back," he said. "I know," she hesitated. "I don't really have anywhere I'm expected." "You are now, by 2 very bossy 7-year-olds. She smiled. "What he did," he added carefully, "wasn't about you. It felt like it, I'm sure, but some people panic when life changes. You didn't." "I wanted to," he admitted. That honesty settled between them. When Haley scraped her knee, Elena handled it calmly, pulling a first aid kit from her bag. "You're not just a princess," Haley declared. "No? You're a knight." "A wheel knight," Chloe added. They all laughed. As the sun lowered, Haley leaned out of the car window. "Same time next week?" Elena hesitated only a second. "Same time,"
Before she left, she paused by her door. "Last Saturday was the worst day of my life." David waited. "But it wasn't today." "I'm glad," he said quietly. As she drove away, Chloe whispered from the back seat, "Which daddy likes her?" "I heard that," he replied. Haley added, "Mom would too." David looked back at the empty grass by the lake. For the first time in 2 years, the park didn't feel like a memorial. It felt like a beginning. By the third Saturday, Elena Vance no longer paused at the entrance of Mirror Lake Park. At 5:55 p.m., she rolled straight toward the oak tree like she belonged there. A widower, pretending not to scan the walkway every 30 seconds, exhaled when he saw her. "You're early," David Calloway said, folding up a newspaper. "I like to be punctual, unlike some grooms I used to know." He winced slightly, but she was smiling when she said it. That was new. The twins barreled toward her. "Wheel night," Chloe shouted. Haley held up a drawing. "We made you something." Elena took the paper carefully. It was 4 stick figures holding hands near a very large duck. "That one's you," Haley explained, pointing. "We gave you the biggest crown." "I thought I was a knight," said Elena. "You can be both," Chloe decided. David watched her face as she studied the drawing. There was a flicker there, not pain this time, something softer. They spent the afternoon the way they had begun to, feeding ducks, arguing about which snacks were superior, Chloe insisting Elena push her wheelchair just a little, which earned her a lecture from Haley about safety. At 4:47 p.m., while the girls chased each other near the water, David sat beside Elena on the grass. "You seem lighter," he said. "I joined a support group, Thursday nights, community center on Maple." He nodded, impressed. "That's big." "It's terrifying," she corrected, "but I'm tired of feeling like I disappeared." He studied her profile. "You didn't." She glanced at him. "You barely know me." "I know enough." She looked back at the lake. "My fiancé hasn't tried to call, not once. I keep checking. I don't know why." David's jaw tightened. "Because you loved him." "Yeah." Silence. "And because you want proof you mattered," he added. Her throat moved as she swallowed. "Did you ever feel guilty when you started laughing again?" He didn't answer immediately. "Every time," he admitted. "The first time I took the girls to a movie without her, I sat in the car afterward and apologized out loud." "For what?" "For surviving." That landed between them. Chloe suddenly ran back, breathless. "Daddy, can Elena come over for dinner sometime?" David blinked. "Chloe." "What?" Haley joined in. "We have extra chairs." Elena froze slightly, caught between hope and fear. David looked at her, giving her the choice. "You don't have to." She hesitated only a moment. "I'd like that," she answered. The twins cheered like she had agreed to move in permanently. As the sun dipped lower, Elena found herself imagining a dinner table. Laughter, noise, a place set for her. It scared her, but not enough to say no. Dinner was set for Friday at 6:30 p.m., and Elena Vance almost canceled twice before she even left her apartment. She stared at her phone at 5:12 p.m., thumb hovering over David's name. Then the screen lit up first. Ethan. Her stomach dropped. She knew the number before she opened it. "Ethan, I've been thinking. We should talk. I didn't mean what I said." Her chest tightened so fast she had to grab the edge of the kitchen counter. "Didn't mean what I said." The words felt cheap, careless, like the text that had shattered her months ago. Another message followed. "Ethan, I panicked. This isn't how I wanted things to end." She stared at the screen until it blurred. Then she locked the phone. At 6:27 p.m., she was outside David Calloway's house, parked at the curb, hands still trembling slightly. A man adjusting a porch light while glancing down the street spotted her and waved. "You made it," David said, walking down the steps. "I said I would." The door burst open behind him. Haley shouted, "She's here!" Chloe appeared seconds later, holding a handmade place card. "We put you between us." Elena felt something loosen in her chest. Inside, the house was warm and loud in a way that felt lived in, not staged. Shoes by the door, crayons on the coffee table, a faint scent of garlic from the kitchen. She rolled toward the dining table and paused. There were 4 plates set. 4, not 3 and an empty one, just 4. "You okay?" David asked quietly beside her. "Yeah," she said. "I just haven't sat at a table like this in a while." He didn't ask what that meant. During dinner, the twins argued about whether Elena preferred cats or dogs. David refilled her water without making a show of it. Chloe insisted Elena taste her mashed potatoes because they're shaped like a heart. At 7:18 p.m., Elena's phone buzzed again in her lap. She stiffened. David noticed. "You can take it," he said gently. She shook her head. "It's nothing." But when she glanced down, the preview was there. "Ethan, I miss you." The words hit differently this time. Not like hope, like an old bruise someone kept pressing. Across the table, Haley was explaining multiplication with dramatic hand gestures. Chloe leaned against Elena's arm like it was natural. Natural. Elena slowly turned her phone face down. Later, when the girls ran upstairs to show her their room, David stayed in the kitchen. A man gripping the edge of the counter asked quietly, "Is he back?" She froze in the hallway. "You knew?" she asked. "I saw your face." She wheeled closer. "He wants to talk." "And you?" She hesitated. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me wants to hear him say he was wrong." David nodded once. "That makes sense. But another part of me," her voice softened, "doesn't want to feel that small again." Something moved behind his eyes. "You shouldn't," he said firmly. "Ever." Their eyes held a beat too long. Footsteps thundered from upstairs. "Daddy, Elena has to see our glow-in-the-dark stars." The moment broke. Elena looked at David one last second before turning toward the stairs. And for the first time, the idea of going backward felt heavier than the fear of moving forward. 2 weeks later, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, Elena Vance wheeled down David Calloway's hallway looking for the bathroom and stopped in front of a half-open door. She hadn't meant to pry, but inside the room, nothing had changed. A neatly made bed, a dressing box on the dresser, a framed photo of a smiling woman holding newborn twins, fresh flowers in a vase, slightly wilted, untouched, frozen. Elena's fingers tightened on her wheels. She backed away just as David came down the hall carrying folded laundry. He followed her gaze. His shoulders went still. "I haven't," he exhaled. "I haven't moved anything." She nodded slowly. "I can see that." The air shifted. "It's not a shrine," he said quickly. The girls sometimes come in here. It helps them." "I didn't say it was wrong. But you're thinking something." She looked at him directly. "I'm wondering where I fit." The words landed harder than she intended. He set the laundry down. "You're not replacing her. I know that. Do you?" Silence stretched. She swallowed. "I don't want to be the woman who occupies space someone else left behind." He ran a hand through his hair. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" He hesitated, and that hesitation cut deeper than anything else. Downstairs, the twins' laughter floated faintly from the living room. Elena forced a small smile. "It's okay. I shouldn't have come down here." She turned her chair slightly. "Elena." "David, it's fine." Her voice was calm, but her chest felt tight. "You loved her. You still love her. I don't compete with ghosts very well." "That's not fair," he said quietly. "I know." She paused. But neither was being called a liability. He flinched. That night she left earlier than usual. At 9:14 p.m. her phone buzzed again. "Ethan, I drove by your old apartment. You've moved?" Her stomach twisted. He was circling back into her life at the exact moment doubt had slipped in. Meanwhile, inside his dim kitchen, David stood alone staring at the closed hallway door. Upstairs, Haley crossed her arms at the top of the stairs. Why did Elena leave? David looked up. She had things to do. Chloe shook her head. She looked sad. He opened his mouth, closed it. Haley stepped down one stair. Are you messing this up? The bluntness hit him square in the chest. I don't know, he admitted. Chloe hugged the railing. Mom wouldn't want you to be lonely. The words broke something open. David walked down the hallway slowly and pushed open the untouched bedroom door. He stood there for a long time, not erasing, not replacing, just finally understanding that holding on and moving forward were not the same thing. And somewhere across town, Elena stared at her silent phone and wondered if she was about to be abandoned twice. On Thursday at 6:02 p.m., Elena Vance was halfway through her support group at the Maple Community Center when her phone vibrated in her lap. She ignored it. The woman across from her was talking about rebuilding trust after betrayal, about not confusing loneliness with love. Elena swallowed hard. When the meeting ended at 7:11 p.m., she finally checked her phone. 3 missed calls, all from David Calloway. Her heart jumped. Before she could call back, headlights pulled into the parking lot. David stepped out of his truck, shutting the door a little too hard. A man who clearly drove too fast across town walked toward her. Are the girls okay? She asked immediately. They're fine, he said, slightly breathless. They're with my sister. Elena exhaled. He stopped in front of her wheelchair, hands on his hips like he was bracing himself. I moved the room, he said. She blinked. What? Not erased, not boxed away like she didn't exist. His voice was steady but tight. But I moved things. The girls helped. We made space. Elena stared at him. I realized something, he continued. I've been afraid that if I change anything, I'm betraying her. And if I let myself love you, his voice caught slightly, I'm replacing her. She felt her throat tighten. But that's not what this is, he said firmly. You're not a substitute. You're not filling a gap. You're you. A car passed behind them. And I don't want to lose you because I'm scared, he finished. Elena held his gaze. I almost went back, she admitted quietly. His jaw tensed. To him, he's been texting, calling, saying he panicked. She swallowed. Part of me wanted him to fight for me. David crouched down in front of her. I'm fighting for you, he said. Not loudly, not dramatically, just honestly. Her chest rose unevenly. I'm terrified, she whispered. The last time I trusted someone completely, I ended up alone in a wedding dress. I know, his voice softened. And the last time I promised forever, I lost her in a hospital hallway. They sat there in the parking lot, 2 people who knew exactly how fragile happiness could be. I don't need you to erase your past, she said slowly. I just need to know there's room for me in your future. He didn't hesitate this time. There is. Her phone buzzed again. Ethan, we belong together. She stared at the screen. Then, without breaking eye contact with David, she blocked the number. David saw the movement. Didn't ask. She exhaled shakily. I can't go backward. Good, he said softly, because I'm not going anywhere. For the first time since that day at Mirror Lake Park, Elena felt the ground beneath her steady. Not because nothing could go wrong, but because this time someone was steadying. 2 years later, on a warm Friday evening at 7:03 p.m., Elena Vance sat in the backyard of David Calloway's house, pretending not to notice that something was clearly happening. The twins had been whispering all afternoon. Chloe kept disappearing into the kitchen. Haley shushed her twice and knocked over a chair. Elena, don't look over here, Haley shouted from behind the sliding door. Elena raised an eyebrow at David. Should I be concerned? Probably, he said far too calmly. She narrowed her eyes. You're involved. Allegedly. Over the past 2 years, the house had changed. The spare bedroom was now a shared craft room. The hallway walls held new photos, school plays, lake days, one framed picture of Elena covered in flour after a failed baking experiment. Nothing had been erased. Everything had expanded. Chloe burst outside holding something behind her back. "Close your eyes." Elena laughed. "Is this safe?" "Trust us," Haley said. David stepped in front of her. A man who was once afraid to move a single photograph now looked steadier than she had ever seen him. "Okay," he said softly. "You can open them." He was on one knee. Not dramatic, not flashy, just him. In his hand was a small velvet box. "Whisper loudly from the window. Don't forget the speech." Haley shot him a look, then turned back to Elena. "2 years ago," he began, voice steady but thick, "I walked across Mirror Lake Park because someone was crying. I thought I was helping a stranger." Her eyes filled. "I didn't know she'd become the person who helps my daughters with homework, who makes our house louder, who reminds me that loving again isn't betrayal." He swallowed. "I don't want to imagine another Saturday without you." Elena's hands trembled. "You weren't a liability," he said quietly. "You were the best thing that ever happened to us." Haley sniffed from inside. "Say yes." Chloe pressed her face against the glass. David opened the box. "Elena Vance," he said gently, "will you marry me?" There was no hesitation this time. "Yes," she breathed. The twins exploded out the door, nearly knocking him over as he slid the ring onto her finger. "Finally," Haley declared. Chloe hugged Elena so tightly she laughed through the tears. A year later, at 4 p.m. on a clear Saturday afternoon, Elena rolled toward the altar set up in the same park where everything had begun. This time, there was no empty space, no waiting. David stood there already, eyes shining, hands clasped. Haley and Chloe walked ahead in matching dresses, scattering petals with exaggerated seriousness. As Elena approached, David didn't look afraid. He looked certain. When she reached him, he whispered, "I'm here." "I know," she whispered back. And this time, he stayed. 3 years after the wedding, at 3:59 p.m. on a quiet Saturday in June, the four of them spread a blanket under the same oak tree at Mirror Lake Park. Elena Vance adjusted the picnic basket on her lap, while Chloe carefully lined up strawberry cookies, exactly like the first time. Haley insisted on being in charge of the duck bread, claiming seniority. David Calloway stood for a moment, looking at the lake. "Stop getting sentimental," Haley warned him. "I'm not," he said, even though he clearly was. Elena smiled up at him. "You are a little." He sat beside her. "Okay, maybe a little." Chloe pointed dramatically toward the water. "That's where we found you, crying." "I remember," Elena said softly. Haley tilted her head. "Were you really that sad?" Elena considered the question. "Yes," she said honestly. "I thought my life was over." David reached for her hand without thinking. She laced her fingers through his. "And now?" Chloe asked. Elena looked at the three of them. The man who had walked toward her instead of away. The two girls who had offered cookies instead of questions. "Now, I think it was just starting." David exhaled slowly. "You know," he said, watching the ducks skim across the water, "I used to come here because it reminded me of what I lost." The twins went quiet. He continued, steady. "Now I come here because it reminds me of what we found." Haley pretended not to wipe her eye. "You're definitely being sentimental." Chloe leaned against Elena's shoulder. "If that mean prince hadn't been mean, you wouldn't be here." Elena laughed softly. "I guess not." David squeezed her hand. "I used to think loving again meant replacing something," he admitted. "It doesn't. It just makes more room." Elena glanced at him. "He once said I wasn't complete." Haley frowned. He was wrong. David shook his head gently. He just didn't know what complete looked like. Elena watched her daughters, because that's what they were now, argue over who fed more ducks. For the first time in her life, there was no question about where she belonged. The wind shifted slightly across the lake, carrying the girls' laughter over the water. David leaned closer. "You okay?" She nodded. "I'm home," she said, and this time no one walked away. Elena smiled at David and the twins, watching the ducks glide across Mirror Lake, the family she never expected, finally whole. The sun dipped low, casting a warm glow over a day that had started with heartbreak and ended with hope. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to Soul Strength Stories for more heartwarming tales.